The restaurant was buzzing that evening, filled with the chatter of businessmen and families enjoying their meals. At the far end, a sharply dressed man, in a tailored suit, sat confidently at his table. His expensive watch glinted under the lights, and the way he looked around made it clear he was used to being the center of attention. When the waitress approached with her calm smile, he glanced at her name tag and smirked. "If you can serve me in Chinese," he said loudly, just enough for nearby tables to hear, "I'll give you $100,000. A few people laughed, thinking it was just another rich man's joke, but the young woman didn't flinch. Her name was Maya, a hard-working waitress who had been juggling college, night shifts, and dreams far bigger than anyone could guess. She looked him in the eye, her voice steady and polite. "You said in Chinese, right?" she asked softly. The man nodded, still amused, tapping his gold card on the table like it was all a game. The restaurant fell silent as Maya took a breath. What happened next made every head turn, every laugh fade, and even the arrogant millionaire lose his smile. No one expected what she was about to say or how many languages she actually knew. And in that moment, the entire room learned that class isn't shown by money, but by the way you treat people. Then Maya opened her mouth to speak. Maya began to speak, her tone calm but confident, her words flowing in perfect Mandarin. The room went completely still. Every sentence she spoke carried grace and precision, her pronunciation flawless. The millionaire's smirk slowly faded, replaced by a look of disbelief. A few customers nearby began whispering, pulling out their phones, recording the unexpected scene. Maya finished taking his order in Chinese, then smiled politely as if nothing unusual had happened. The man leaned back in his chair, clearly embarrassed, but trying to hide it behind another laugh. "Impressive," he said, "but I bet that's the only language you know." His voice carried a mix of pride and irritation, unwilling to admit he had underestimated her. Maya just nodded politely and walked away to place his order. But inside, memories began flooding back years of late-night study sessions, books from different countries, and her dream of becoming a linguist. Maya had grown up in a small neighborhood, where people often judged her before knowing her story. While others saw just a waitress, she saw herself as a student of the world. Every language she learned had taught her something about patience, respect, and humanity. Yet, no matter how much she knew, people rarely looked past her uniform. As she carried his food back to the table, the millionaire's friends leaned forward, curious. He wasn't done testing her. "All right," he said with a grin. "How about French next?" The challenge wasn't over, and neither was Maya's quiet power. Maya didn't hesitate. She placed the tray down and answered the millionaire's question in smooth, fluent French. Her voice carried across the table, soft yet confident, every word perfectly pronounced. The group of men who had been laughing earlier now stared in quiet surprise. One of them even dropped his fork. The millionaire leaned forward, eyebrows raised, pretending to be impressed, but his ego was bruised. He wasn't used to losing control of a moment, especially to someone he had underestimated. "Not bad," he muttered, trying to sound casual. "But can you handle Italian?" he added with a smirk, hoping to catch her off guard. Without missing a beat, Maya responded in Italian, her tone light and almost teasing this time. The other diners began clapping softly, sensing the shift in power. The millionaire forced a laugh, but there was a flicker of frustration in his eyes. In the corner, the restaurant manager watched nervously. He had seen rude customers before, but this one was different. He was famous. The man's name was Richard Hale, a millionaire investor known for his arrogance as much as his success. Cameras rolling around him could easily turn this small moment into something viral. Meanwhile, Maya's coworker, Elena, stood near the counter, proud but worried. She knew Maya had every right to stand tall, but challenging a man with influence could have consequences. The room's energy was tense, the kind that hinted something bigger was about to happen, and everyone could feel it. The air in the restaurant grew heavy, as if everyone was holding their breath. Richard leaned forward, his voice lower now, but sharp with irritation. "All right, since you're so talented, let's make this interesting," he said, placing his gold card on the table with a tap. "If you can speak 5 more languages, I'll double it. $200,000. The room gasped. Some thought he was joking again. Others sensed his pride was pushing him too far. Maya looked at him steadily, her heart racing but her face calm. She didn't care about the money. It was the way he spoke to her, the way he treated people like entertainment. Around her, whispers spread, phones were out, cameras pointed. Everyone wanted to see how far this would go. She nodded slowly. "All right," she said, her voice steady, "but this isn't about proving something to you." Then she began speaking again, switching from Spanish to Japanese, then to Arabic. Each word flowed beautifully, her accent precise, her tone warm. The audience was spellbound. Even the kitchen staff peeked through the door, watching in awe. Richard's confidence began to crack. He shifted in his seat, pretending to smile, but the color in his face said otherwise. The spotlight that once made him feel powerful now made him small. When Maya spoke her final sentence in German, the room erupted in quiet applause. But just as the tension seemed ready to break, Richard stood abruptly, slamming his hand on the table. "Who are you, really?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the restaurant. Maya froze for a second, startled by Richard's sudden outburst. The entire restaurant went silent again, all eyes locked on them. His question wasn't just angered, it carried suspicion. "Who are you really?" he repeated, his tone louder now. "You're not just some waitress. No one learns 9 languages by accident." His voice shook slightly, not from rage but from something else, fear or recognition. Maya set the tray down carefully, her calm never breaking. "I'm exactly who I said I am," she replied softly, but inside, her pulse quickened. She hadn't told anyone about her past, the scholarships, the years abroad, or the man she once worked for translating international deals. And that man happened to be Richard's biggest business rival. The realization hit him his smirk vanished. "You used to work for Marcus Lynn," he said slowly, piecing it together. The crowd exchanged confused looks, not understanding the weight of what he'd just said. Maya said nothing, but her silence spoke volumes. Richard's pride twisted into something darker, a mix of guilt and unease. He'd mocked the very woman who once sat in the same meetings that made him rich. Around them, the murmurs grew louder. The cameras that once filmed for fun now captured something explosive. Elena stepped closer, sensing the tension. "Maya, maybe you should," she began, but Richard cut her off. "No," he said sharply. "I want to know why you're here." The air felt electric, the truth hovering just out of reach. Maya looked at Richard, her expression calm but filled with something deeper, disappointment. "Why I'm here?" she repeated quietly. "Because sometimes people forget where real value comes from. I wanted a normal life, not one built on arrogance and money." Her words landed heavy, and for the first time, Richard had no reply. The customers who had gathered around watched in silence, unsure what would happen next. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a folded letter. "You might want this back," she said, placing it on the table. His eyes widened the moment he saw the letterhead. It was from his late father's foundation, the same one that had once offered Maya a grant for her language work. "He believed in kindness," she added softly. "He told me once that power means nothing if you can't respect people." Richard sat frozen, realizing the woman he mocked was the same scholar his father had admired years ago. The room stayed quiet as he stood, his usual confidence replaced with shame. "I didn't know," he muttered. Maya nodded. "You didn't ask." Just as she turned to leave, Richard called out, "Wait, the offer still stands. You've earned every dollar." She stopped, looked back, and smiled faintly. "Keep it," she said. "You need the lesson more than I need the money." The crowd broke into quiet applause. But as Maya walked out into the night, her phone buzzed a message from Marcus Lynn himself. "I saw the video." It read, "We need to talk." Maya stepped outside the restaurant, the cool night air brushing against her face. The noise from inside slowly faded as she stood under the streetlight, her phone still glowing in her hand. The message from Marcus Lynn made her smile. Life had a strange way of circling back. She had walked away from that world years ago to find peace. Yet tonight, fate had pulled her right back into it. Inside, Richard sat quietly at his table, his untouched meal in front of him. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about profit or prestige. He replayed Maya's words again and again, realizing how easily he had judged someone without knowing their story. When his friends asked if he was okay, he just nodded, lost in thought. By the next morning, the video of the black waitress who spoke 9 languages had gone viral. People from around the world commented, praising Maya's humility and grace. She returned to work the next day as usual, smiling at the regulars, refusing to let the attention change her. To her, it wasn't about fame or proving anyone wrong. It was about dignity, respect, and the quiet strength of knowing her worth. Later that week, she met Marcus Lynn again, not as an assistant but as a partner in a new cultural foundation. And as she looked out at the city skyline, Maya finally felt at peace. The night she was mocked had become the night her true voice was finally heard.